Welcome back. We're discussing Canada's role in the world, specifically in developing nations. And joining us to have that discussion is Obianuju Ekeocha, President of Culture of Life Africa. Uju, thanks again for joining today. Just before we went to commercial break, we were explaining what Canada's role is seen in the world, specifically in Africa. You mentioned that Canada used to be, we used to listen. Our diplomats would listen, our foreign NGOs, we would listen a lot more. But now you said we have a very loud voice. What do you mean by that, and what's the problem with that?
I think you have to be living under a rock if you're living in the West and you have not noticed that there is very strong emerging cultures. There are very strong traditions. There are very strong ideas and ideologies coming up in the West. Okay, and I say this as an African living in the West. These are things that we are seeing in schools. We are seeing it being talked about in public, in private, on social media. So now imagine this same set of ideologies are now being brought across the ocean to nations that have absolutely no interest in taking up these ideologies, in kind of bringing it even into public discourse, things that we have completely rejected as nations, as cultures, as customs. We have rejected these. Now, some Western countries I find that they're coming back with these things, or they're coming to us with these ideologies, and they're pushing it towards us. They're trying to kind of force it down into the bloodstream of our society. And Canada has become one of the loudest voices, I could say, based on some of their new policies, some of the ways that they have approached us. They have stopped listening because they have become way too loud, and they are coming in such a way that almost in a kind of supremacist way, in a kind of superior way, and insistent on pushing down these ideologies that the African people have rejected in the past. And they are doing that in very unfortunate ways through things like funding and projects and policies, things that we never really experienced before, at least not coming from, not coming from a country like Canada that had
Right.
previously been very good companions to work with as far as an African is concerned.
So could you give us some examples of what kind of ideologies you're referring to, or what kind of programs that you're suggesting that basically Canada's, I guess, browbeating African nations?
Yes. So that's, thanks for giving me this opportunity once again, because I think when it comes down to it, we should talk about real projects happening on ground. So I'll give an example. A couple of years ago, I found on your own government website some new project coming up in Ethiopia, and this is one of many, many projects like that. So this on the surface looked a bit like an academic program, looked a bit like a nutrition program. So it was targeting young girls in Ethiopia for what they call adolescent friendly family planning. And so this is really targeting minors in Ethiopia, but they were doing it hand in hand with a food project. So in other words, the Canadian government is providing money, and they were doing it jointly with some of the UN agencies that I will not mention at this particular time, but they were doing it in conjunction with other people, essentially coming from the West, providing food, nutrition. But when the girls then came to these points of contact with the Western governments, they were then providing the so-called adolescent-friendly family planning. So they are pushing the ideas of comprehensive sexuality education. They are trying to introduce our young children, our young African children, to the kind of ideas that have to do with human sexuality, human, morality within society, and things like that. Against the parents' will, without the parents, the African parents, kind of contributing to it. So it's there are several projects like that, and your government is now beginning to put money towards it. They are actually budgeting for it and putting forward funding streams for it. Once you put money to anything, anyone knows that, of course, that will go a long way to getting whatever you try to achieve. So I think that these are very unfortunate things, and very arrogant way for Canada to treat African countries. and other parts of the developing world.
We only have about 20 seconds before commercial, but so what's wrong with this? Obviously, there's a coercive element that doesn't sound good, but what's wrong with teaching girls about comprehensive sexual education?
Oh, I think we're going to need more than 20 seconds to
Well,
to
start us
unpack
off.
this.
Start us off, and
Yes,
then
but
we'll.
of course, anyone knows in any part of the world that one comes from that parents right of
Right.
educating their children in the way that they see fit.
Okay.
People have their own moral values. People have their own codes within their own society, especially when it has to do with human morality, human sexuality. So parents should always, in any part of the world, have the right to educate their children and form the children in the way they think would reflect the values of that society. So why should another country supersede the parents, go over the heads of the parents, and then bring in values that, most likely, in most cases, the parents would be diametrically opposed to those things that are coming from the outside forces. So
Right.
that is one of the things wrong with it.